correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm Steve.
And I'm Steve. And we're going to talk some RPGs.
We are Steves.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk RPGs, like he said, which I probably talked over him so you didn't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before we get into what we're going to get into, I want to take a minute to tell you about another podcast here on the D20 Radio Network, that being Eberron Renewed.
I love me some Eberron.
It is a very good show. Now, as you might guess from the title, they are a podcast primarily dealing with things in the Eberron setting, which, of course, you know, most of our regular listeners will know is something quite well liked by both of us here, and quite a few people, actually. But they're actually now into their third campaign.
Third one?
They did
Wow.
Their first campaign was, I don't remember, 200 and some episodes, I think, or more. And that was all in 5th Ed D&D. And then campaign 2 ran for quite a long time, and they used the Genesis rule set for that. Now, I have not yet listened to any of campaign 3, but when I talked to Eric last year at Gamer Nation Con, he was building a custom system that they were planning on using for campaign 3. So that could be interesting to check out. I will say, you know, I listened to all of campaign 1, quite a bit of campaign 2, and just have gotten in the weeds.
Yeah, I feel that.
But they're very, very entertaining story and role play and all that. So definitely worth checking out if you're into some actual play and you're into Eberron. So yeah, Eberron Renewed, or, you know, hey, just go to D20 Network or D20radio.com, I think is what it's called, and click on a podcast tab. There's a bunch of shows there that you can find fun stuff to listen to if you're looking for more things to fill time while you do other things.
Right. Well, what's our topic for this week?
Well, so as sometimes happens, somebody posts things in our Discord, and it makes me start thinking. And this week, old friend of ours, goes by Prince of Apathy on the Discord, old friend of mine from college, put up a post saying, and let me click on it here just so I can get it right. But he was asking about a concept that, you know, especially back in like the second ed D&D days, you know, the dump stat, right? His post was, back in my day, charisma was the dump stat. Young people today are probably all about the Riz. So what's the new dump stat? And it kind of got me thinking of a couple of things, because there was a couple of comments got made by various people about, you know, not liking the D&D stat structure and this and that and the other thing. And it also brought to mind some comments I'd read. But he's right in that, you know, most of us, at least people that I knew and the way that we all played second ed D&D, charisma almost always was your dump stat. It was the one that,
There was no benefit to running charisma as your main stat. Sorry, not to get into this too early, but there was no classes in second edition that really used charisma in a way that we use charisma now. If you think about it, you know, in modern parlance, the charisma stat is your spellcasting stat for any sort of bard character. Well, in second ed, bard was hard to do, because in AD&D, it was all, you had to multi-class into everything in order to be a bard. And in order to do that, you had to have minimum stat requirements for every single stat.
Mm. And then I think now in third, did Warlock run off of charisma?
Probably. I think third onward, Warlock and Bard are pretty much Chris.
Yeah. Is Sorcerer charisma?
No.
No? Okay,
Sorcerer is wisdom.
Really?
Because Wizard's intelligence, Sorcerer's wisdom. And the logic
Cleric's
behind it
wisdom.
What was that?
Clerics are wisdom.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I was thinking.
I might be wrong. Hold on. We were talking about sorcerers. Oh, it says charisma and constitution are the main stats. Huh.
Okay.
I'm to be corrected. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I
There's so much stuff that I can't keep straight in my own head anymore.
well, but the thing, like, I think though the discussion really goes more to the idea of a dump stat. I think originated in like you said, you didn't use it for anything, so why bother to put points in it?
Right. Yeah,
But
and in modern stat-based games, a lot of the time there isn't a need for a dump stat. Either they've been optimized well enough that every stat is used. Kind of think Cyberpunk 2020, right? Like Cyberpunk 2020, you may have had a dump stat, but it was still something that you could, if necessary, use.
okay, well that
And
actually leads me into a point about this
go ahead.
because in Cyberpunk 2020, attractiveness stat. But I remember because it was used for like two skills that I don't think you hardly ever rolled.
No.
But I remember reading something that Mike Pondsmith wrote about, and I don't remember what the title of the article was, but it probably related to because the one concept you've heard about, right, especially from a lot of old school GMs, is hit them in the dump stat. But Mike was in this article was talking about how if you think about it in the context of say Cyberpunk 2020, if you have a low attractiveness, this can actually work like as a GM, and I think you could apply this to other stats, not in the same way. But what he was saying is if you have a low attractiveness in CP 2020, you may actually stand out for being ugly or very poorly dressed, or maybe you're the smelly guy on the bus,
I
right?
mean, I rolled up a whole 2020 character with that idea.
Right, but not just thinking about it as in, "Oh, this character's not very good looking," but thinking about it in the context that if you're very much below average, you're going to stand out and be recognizable because of that. And that was a kind of, in a sense, a role play and story angle that I had never considered about we can call it a dump stat, but let's just say an extraordinarily low stat. And I think that concept can be applied even to games that aren't as stat driven, both as GMs and as a player, right? Like, because I have enjoyed playing characters that have a stat or two that is kind of low. I've played characters with low int that were incredibly fun, and I've even done some things as to where, like, if I'm playing a character with a lower intelligence, I may intentionally take not very good notes so that between Steve Brain and the notes,
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
it
have a
comes
clear recollection of what
across as that.
happened.
Oh, exactly. No, I think dump stats aren't what they used to be, and to say that is kind of funny. It's the it used to be that a dump stat was something that, oh well, I don't need this. Now we use dump stats thematically, like you were just talking about a character that was fairly not intelligent. You would use that as a way to play into more. Back in the day, we didn't do stuff like that. We just didn't care. Yeah.
I mean, there is that element of it. But, like, the other thing
Like, oh
too
man, I'm never
is
gonna cast a spell. What do I need to know this for? And I
fair.
love that. I love that because I made a barbarian one time that was like never gonna cast a spell, and every time the wizard would do something, he'd just be like, "Nerd, you
But, like,
book reader."
I feel like, though, in a sense, right? Even, like, and a lot of games now have moved to more of a point buy system, which almost, in a sense, encourages maybe doing that dump stat, right? Because you can put the point somewhere else. But I think a well-designed game also has skills or abilities that make it so that if you choose to do that, there is a hole there as
Right.
to what your character which I think is a good thing, right?
Yeah, on the whole, I think that's a pretty decent idea.
Yeah, but I think too, also the concept of dump stat or whatever also goes into the min-maxing mentality, which is a thing. Eh, I
Some
can
people
very
like it,
much
some people don't like it. I'm indifferent about it. If that's the way you wanna play the game and you wanna min-max your way through it, go for it.
yes.
I'm gonna
I
go for something a little bit more thematic, but if you wanna be the most efficient killing machine ever made, go for it. Fantastic. I'm glad you've made yourself a Terminator.
Right, and yeah, but I think it does speak though to that the well, one, I think now, and I mean, in terms of D&D, your dump stat is different depending on what class you're playing, right? If you're a wizard, you're probably going to dump stat strength because you need intelligence. Wizards tend to be a little more talky oftentimes, so you're not going to dump
Right, so you need the
charisma
charisma.
typically. You don't need it per se, but you're probably going to want it, and a lot of people like it for the social benefits.
The 2 dump stats that I always remember for a wizard was always always strength, and it was always con. Constitution is
Well,
like,
problem with con and old school in second was that D4 that wizards got as their hit die.
oh, yeah. I mean, it didn't matter,
But
though. It
well,
didn't
that
matter how
fair
high your
point.
constitution was, it didn't give you another D4.
True, true. Okay, I see your point there. Yeah. But like
You
as you get
still
into
got
other
that
games,
you still got that D4 no matter what, but yeah.
yeah,
But what
I
you
think
were
as
saying,
if you get into more other games though, where like you oftentimes, and I find this especially for myself, where we play games that maybe I've never played it before. Well, I tend to, because of my brain, first time through, I don't necessarily want to make a specialized character because, I don't know the game. And in some cases, I don't know the style of the GM because it's going to really not be a fun character. If my whole is the thing that gaming group, that game, that GM, it's their go-to thing.
right,
You know what I mean? Other than can it be comic relief? Yes, but I think too much comic relief
a
it can
bad
get
thing.
old fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it can.
So yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't want to say that the concept of a dump stat is antiquated, but I think it's like kind of like
I
you
think it
mentioned.
all I think it
Go
all
ahead.
depends on the system. I think it all depends on the system. I think if we go back in time, if we're talking D&D, yeah, there is such a thing as a dump stat. I think in modern parlance of D&D or Pathfinder, no, there isn't a dump stat. And that's all out of the change in how we play those games. Because back in the day, it was really a pain to multiclass. It really was. AD&D was a bear to multiclass into anything. And to do it now, it's at the snap of a fingers. All it takes is I'm going to dedicate this next level to blah blah blah. And that's it. You don't have to have there's no minimum stats anymore. No stat requirements like there used to be. There's no like you don't have to have a 14 in charisma to be nowadays. So I think
You
it's just
don't
a
if I'm remembering right, you don't for your primary class, but if you multi-class, there are because I remember I ran into this in a build I did quite a while back where to take a level of fighter, I had to have strength 13.
well, that's yeah. I mean, but getting strength from let's say you put 10 strength, right?
Mhm.
Three three levels of strength is not that hard to achieve,
Not terribly, no.
especially when speaking to D&D, especially when level progression gets you either major level progression or minor level progression.
True. Yeah, like I said, that's neither here nor there, and I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
a
a whole
rule
getting
that
into the weeds and pedantics
could
and
easily be waived at a lot of tables.
yeah. Yeah.
Because I know it's not like you can be a fighter with a strength 6 if you want to be. But like I said, it was the multi-classing, and then I get to from a standpoint of if you have a strength 6, no one's going to say, "Oh yeah, I'll teach you how to be a fighter, Mister, you know,
Well, yeah, yeah.
weak wizard guy." right? But you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. Like I said, that's kind of
Yeah, no,
getting
I
weedy.
get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. I think you're making a good point there that there are still requirements. I just think that in the modern sense of it all, we don't necessarily worry about that as much.
Well, but I think, like you said, I think we've also, for a lot of modern gamers, we've transitioned from looking at it as a dump stat to looking at it as a prompt, as an indicator, as
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
directive as to how we play the character.
We've broken down and analyzed our stats more than mechanical at this point.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to say it, I think. You know, and so, like, is it better? I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it's
I
more
don't
entertaining.
I don't think it comes back to the is there a wrong way to play RPGs? Yeah, technically, but if you're having fun, who cares?
Yeah.
So, uh, but yeah, dump stats are really interesting because, man, we did used to use dump stats back in the day and didn't just think about them at all. I never once would be like, what do I want my dump stat to be? No, I knew pretty much if I'm rolling a fighter, I know what my dump stat's gonna be. I know I
Right.
don't. I know I don't. Like, I'm rolling up a barbarian. I know I don't need this dexterity.
Unless you're like me and you play a
Unless you're
text-based
like you and
barbarian.
you build a dexterity barbarian. But that's a different beast entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, but and in a sense, right, I was min-maxing when I built that character, but I was min-maxing
The
in
wrong
a
way.
very unconventional way, kind of just because the character concept that popped into my head was too entertaining to me to leave it be, but I couldn't justify doing it in a stereotypical sense.
I wanna min max, but I wanna min max the opposite direction. And just see what that looks like as far as a character and how little they can do. But
Well
that's just me trying to find entertainment out of a system that I don't know,
well, right, like, sometimes the fun becomes, "How can I do this thing that the system
doesn't like.
really didn't intend for me to be able to do?"
How can I make this hate me?
But also, right, like, I think too, we've also like, I know the last Monster of the Week game we played that I don't think you actually got in on, um, I played a character that he wasn't and I forg charm, I think, is the attribute or whatever you call it in Monster of the Week. He wasn't bad at it, but he wasn't good at it, but he ended up talking a lot, and the voice that I kind of fell into kind of seemed like it would be that of a charming person. So I had to kind of like try and think about it as, okay, so how can I play this person who at a glance might appear to be charming, but isn't? And that created kind of a very fun thing of, okay, how can I like juxtapose how they sound with what they do? You know, and so like he would sometimes maybe he'd be nice about it, but he'd be very a little overly blunt or
Yeah,
maybe a
just
little bit inappropriate, but not in a overt way, I guess is the best, and so it was like it was fun to think about in that context, and I think that's where you can have some fun with these low stats, right? Of do you play into that character not being good at this thing, but maybe they still wanna do some stuff with it, like,
oh,
we pointed
I absolutely played a wizard who was too weak to open a door. I absolutely played that guy and had a real blast doing it because every time we'd encounter a door, I would crack my knuckles and be like, "I got this, guys." Ugh.
Right, but, like, also, like and this to me, I know we've used him as such an example, but the character to me, the way Travis Willingham played Grog in the first
Oh,
Critical
it's
Role
so
campaign,
good.
it was
So
so
good.
good because he played this big-hearted ox who had this vicious streak to him, but at times, he he was their pit bull, right?
Yeah, no, he was a big baby most of the time.
You know, but he would also there were times where he would play out and this is, like, where he would try to be smart because
Oh, yeah,
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 the way I read it was the character was going, "I'm gonna be smart like Percy."
yeah.
You know?
I'm gonna do this.
And
Yeah.
I think those opportunities can be so much fun. You know, like, I remember where he stole Percy's glasses somehow and was trying to, you know, trade them back to him.
Oh god.
Like, I don't remember the whole bit, but I remember when I heard it thinking it was absolutely hysterical.
It Yeah, because he was trying to trade them back to get one of Percy's guns. He was like, "No, give me your glasses and give me a gun. I'll give you your glasses, you give me a gun." And Percy was like, "No. No, because what are you gonna do with it? Beat somebody with it?" Like,
Yeah, it would, you know, but, like,
I
or
know, it's
and I don't mean necessarily. It's not always though for comedic effect. You could even do that, like with your wizard, where okay, he's like actively getting frustrated by the fact that God damn it, I can't ever open this damn doors. You can
right.
use it in so many ways.
Oh,
Does it be
yeah.
because think about it, as people we do that, right? We'll get this streak up our rear end about I'm going to prove that I can whatever, even though you know
Even though I can't. Even though I can't.
or I wanna learn to play, shred style guitar, but I have short, fat fingers, and not saying you can't, but it's gonna take a hell of a lot more work than if you have hands like Paul Gilbert.
Yeah, yeah, that's I've gone back to learning some more guitar, and I've gotten to this point where I've decided that, I wanna stick with my rhythm guitar. Uh,
Well, that's I was watching kind of a tangent here, but since I led us into it, I watched a video recently watched a couple videos with Paul Gilbert, and, I mean, for those who don't know who he is, he's a guitar player for Mr. Big, Racer X, he's done a bunch of stuff. Extremely talented, I'm gonna call him a shredder, but if you look at his hands, he has fingers like Michael Jordan.
oh,
You
yeah.
know, he's got these real long, lanky fingers where, I mean, I have fairly large hands, mostly in the palm of my hand, not in my actual fingers. So I'm not gonna be able to do the same things that he can or at least it's gonna be a lot harder for me to do it, and I think that applies in the context of a role-playing game, right? Like, it's not that you can't do it,
It's just gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for you to do it, and
but those
I
struggles can
I used to do this thing, and I might bring it back. I used to do this thing where I don't remember what I stole it from, but if somebody tried to do and failed at doing something a bunch, they would get a rank in that stat because basically you're trying to use that stat,
Mhm.
and you would get just like get a +1. You failed
Well
trying to do that thing 3 times. You get a little bonus for that. Why? Because you're actively trying to work out and make that a better stat, and you're proving to me that you're trying to use that stat.
Well, but in the context of game, now this doesn't apply to stats so much as skills, but that's exactly how Delta Green does skill improvement.
W
You improve
Well,
by
yeah.
unsuccessfully using the skill, which I find actually a really cool thing,
I love it.
you
I
know.
love that idea. Well, because if you think about it logically, if you're good at something and you keep doing the thing that you're good at, yeah, you're gonna get marginally better at that thing. But in the context of like, if you're bad at something and you keep trying to do the thing you're bad at, you're going to get significantly better the more you do that thing.
Well, right,
Because
the
ideally, you're learning from your mistakes.
there's room for improvement.
Yeah,
You know, it's a whole
built
lot
in a
easier for
day.
me to get better at basketball than it is for, you know, what's his name?
Michael
Jokic, the
Jordan. Or,
Michael
yeah.
Jordan or, they call him Joker. I think he plays for Denver now in the
Oh, yeah,
NBA.
yeah, Djokovic.
Or LeBron or whoever, right? Like,
Yeah,
now or even better, right? It's gonna be a whole lot easier for me to improve my shooting in a basketball context than it is for Steph Curry.
right, because like, he only has marginal gains he can really go to. He only has he can only get this much better because he's already this good.
Right, right. You know, but like I said, I think in the context of role playing and storytelling, if you want to call it a dump stat, but just those low stats are such an opportunity for crafting storylines and them having more weight and tension than the thing that your character is good at.
Very much so. Very,
You
very
know,
much
like
so.
if we're watching a Jason Statham movie, we know he's going to be able to punch the thing in the face and knock it out. But
Right.
if he has to do something on a computer terminal, now there's some suspense. You know what I'm saying? And I'm, making fun of the character he takes to a certain point. It's almost like actually Nicolas Cage movies, I think, are a good example of this where they oftentimes, I think, lean into the thing that maybe that character's not as good at. You know what I mean?
Nicolas Cage movies do tend to do that. They do tend to put him in positions where he's not super good at this.
Like did you ever get around to watching The Retirement Plan?
No, I did not.
Oh. That one, yeah, it's like he's kind of in like this, well, damn it.
Right?
Um, and it's entertaining. I think it adds another element to the story.
Yeah, I think adding some complication is quite a nice thing.
So feels like we're
Yeah,
winding down a little here. You got any
it
more
does.
thoughts
I
on
think
this?
it's going to be a short episode.
Well, it is
But
the
after
day after Thanksgiving, technically.
yeah, it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I'm running on fumes along with a mild head cold that I need to get
Well, I was
some
gonna say
medicine for.
I was outside this morning putting rabbit hutches together in 25-degree weather.
Right.
That's 25
Exactly.
degrees
So
Fahrenheit, which is what, minus 5-ish
uh,
Celsius?
don't ask me about
It's something in that range.
that. Don't I don't know.
I'm
I'm
converting in
not
my
saying
head. I'm
that to
not.
be disrespectful to anybody that uses those non-freedom units, but
Let's put it this way: it's not a great day to be outside trying to do fine things with your fingers.
right. I know things about bald eagles per hour, and I don't know nothing about no European Union units.
Oh,
Uh,
damn!
but
All
anyways,
right.
I think it's time we move into game of the week.
Woohoo! Game of the week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
I have one, and I'm gonna send that to you right now. And it is a game called Bombs and Burgers. Make art, not war. For when someone forces you to make war, make war. um, it's a game for 1 to 6 players. It can family food sitcom with your favorite tabletop RPG party systems. It's a GM-less or GM full game that follows 5 characters as they try to make art and defend themselves and their restaurant against the attacks from the youngest child and various nemesis. All you need is a d6, a pencil, and paper, and your imagination. And it's based on Bob's Burgers, in case you haven't figured that out yet. If you haven't watched any Bob's Burgers, it is phenomenal. I don't know. I'm not. I am a huge fan of animation. I'm not necessarily the hugest fan of that particular flavor of adult sitcom animation. So that like Family Guy, Simpsons, that type of thing.
Uh-huh.
But Bob's Burgers is hilarious and wholesome in a lot of ways. And doing that with a tabletop RPG could just be a really fun time.
Yeah. Yeah. This does look quite entertaining.
It does. It does. Um, I want to check it out. It's definitely it's $10 for the PDF, so it's not really that expensive. It's system agnostic, so you get to sort of pick. It does appear as though it has its own system.
Well, it also feels like a game that the system isn't really that important.
No, no, it's not. It's not as important as you would need it to be in other systems or other games. But yeah, that's my pick. Bombs and Burgers.
All right. Well, I found a game, and this literally, as we're recording, dropped yesterday.
Hmm.
And this, I think, Steve, is the game, and I know we have some people who are fans of the Morkborg engine that listen to us. And
No,
you and I are
no,
fans too.
nobody's a fan of that engine. Who would be a
But
fan of Morkborg?
but this is a game, Steve, I don't think you realized you needed this game.
Uh-oh.
I
Uh-oh.
found a
Is it
game, and it is a Morkborg hack. It is called Los Kobolds.
Oh, no.
It is post-apocalyptic spaghetti western Morkborg.
Oh, they all look like those ugly oh my god, I need this.
So
This is coming home with me. It's like an ugly dog at the shelter. I'm taking it home with me.
and right now it appears to be knocked down from $9 to $7.
Yeah.
I'll just read the blurb they have, right? It says, now all your post-apocalyptic spaghetti western fantasy adventures can come true. Be the shakiest gun in the wasteland with Los Kobolds. Playing a kobold is just like life in the wasteland. Nasty, brutal, and short. These aren't your typical baby dragon kobolds. These are scaly
Mm-mm.
doggos of old with bad attitudes and poor personal habits. And
Ah,
there's some preview pages put up. Like it's got stuff for animated, necromancers, animated skeletons, zombies, ghouls. Now, the fun part is anytime a necromancer creates a zombie, there is a 1 in 6 chance that that zombie can actually come as a ghoul that has free will and may or may not agree with the necromancer.
screw the entire party over.
Right.
Oh, that's
This,
great.
like, I didn't know I wanted this until I found this listing.
Some things you just don't know you want until you realize need that in my life.
And if you think about it,
Oh,
Morkborg is the perfect engine for a kind of goofy post-apocalyptic spaghetti western.
Morkborg engine is so fast and so brutal and so funny to play. It's hard to describe, and I realized this the other day. It's hard to describe to players, to people that don't play tabletop RPGs, that are still in that old mindset of it takes forever to make a character. How the fun of Morkborg is that, oh well, yeah, our character just died. Oh no, the
Mhm.
entire party died. Like, no, the world ended. It was great.
Yeah, and
And somebody who's like, "Oh, it takes so long to make a character." No, it doesn't. It's literally it's.
the idea of spaghetti western with kind of that old school kobold as your main characters is
Oh
just
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, those old dog kobolds, they're the best.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, but like, there's, like, 3 pages of preview up, 3 or 4, and it looks it just looks awesome.
Yeah. It's awesome in that same sense of like kobolds ate my baby is awesome.
Like, and it just also, right, like, spaghetti westerns are all about that kind of attitude, right? And that's what Morkborg is about.
Right?
This is
Oh man.
playing this to like Hayes Carl, Ray
Oh
Wiley
yeah.
Hubbard and some stuff like that as the soundtrack would be just, oh, what's the other name of the guy? I can't think of the guy's name, but anyway. Um, yeah, like this is, yeah, maybe even some old Chris Christopherson or something going, like this
Yeah,
just feels like the perfect marriage that I didn't realize existed until I saw this.
it's just so good. I just dig it. I love that kind of silliness, and seeing more of that in that engine is great.
But it's like a silliness that's silly from the outside, not necessarily
Oh no, its
from the
own internal
inside,
logic is not it's not silly at all. But on the surface, you're like, this is goofy.
right? And now this is too, I will say, it is apparently the 6th in a series of what the creator is calling zines.
Yeah.
This is 44 pages, so
I
it's not
wouldn't call that a zine.
insubstantial. Um, so I don't know what the other ones are. I haven't gone and looked. It's from a Okumarts Games,
Yeah.
Okumarts. Um, Oakham Arts. Okay, when I see the logo, it makes sense. Okay, they ran it together in one word, and that confused me. But yeah, like the art, it just like I said, I'm sorry. This is a game that I didn't know I wanted
No.
until I found it, and now I do really want it.
Well, on that note, we want to thank everyone for listening. As always, links to everything are in the show notes. Discord, Patreon, come check us out wherever you feel comfortable checking us out at. Um, yeah.
I may put us on Blue Sky here coming up
Oh,
if
I'm
I
on Blue
can.
Sky now.
I have not. I
I
have the app. I just haven't I also part of me doesn't feel like dealing with a
Hey,
personal
guess what?
and no account.
Guess what? I
What?
think you have an Android. So your transition to Blue Sky is going to be really easy. Do a little bit of digging. There's a tool. It'll help you transfer all of your followers on a certain website over to Blue Sky.
Aha.
Well, not your followers, who you follow.
Aha.
If they're on Blue Sky, it'll transfer the over to. I got it because I'm sick of a certain website, and
Yes.
I like having a feed I can scroll through. Because Facebook sucks and Twitter's terrible. So, but with all of that, yeah, check us out on Blue Sky here shortly. And as always, we want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and get out there and play some RPGs.
Yep. Take care, y'all.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast. On Discord at Me and Steve RPGs. And as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.
And on that note, I'm going to go pass out. I will catch you later.
All right. Take care, man.